Welcome back to the Up North podcast. I'm your host, Chris. That's Kyler, and that's Alex. And we are your podcast for all things the Big Sky Conference. We continue our 2022 previews today with the UC Davis Aggies. Guys, got a little 50-50 little warm-up for you. Would you guys rather be a ninja or a pirate? Alex?
Pirate, hands down.
Any particular reason?
I mean, they lived a charmed life. I mean, kind of, not really. It was crap, but it seems exciting. That's why. Adventure. Ninjas, I feel like he's got to be quiet about it. He's just like, hey, I'm a ninja.
Hello, I'm a ninja. Kyler?
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a ninja. Just because, I want to be sneaky.
Yeah. I'm going ninja as well. Mostly because pirates, if you think about it, they have to always go in the battle to get what they want. There's scurvy and stuff. I get seasick easily, so I don't know if that's the life for me. Yeah, sure, the time on land sounds like a great old time in all those movies, but ninja, you can get your job done without anybody even knowing you're there. I feel like, your life expectancy is larger as a ninja, and I enjoy life, so I'll go ninja. Plus, you get the throwing stars. That's kind of cool. Anywho, let us know down below from all you guys in the YouTube comment section. Would you rather be a pirate or a ninja? Now let's review the 2021 UC Davis Aggies. In 2021, they went 8-4. They went 8-3 in the Big Sky. They started a whopping 8-1, then ran into Eastern Washington, and everything went sour. They ended 0-3, didn't make the playoffs, and they were ranked all season last year, which is big for them. They finished the year ranked number 17, and the most important takeaway from the 2021 season for every Big Sky fan out there is the retirement of a UC Davis legend, Pint, the tea retrieving dog. Pour one out for Pint. All right, boys. Any takeaways for the Aggies fans from their 2021 season? And you don't have to pour it out. He didn't die. He just actually retired. But Boatman?
I feel like it was a quiet 8. They started off 8-1, but especially after the spring season, they bowed out of it at the end. I feel like I remember UC Davis being good, but not starting 8-1 good, and looking up all of a sudden in the end of the year and going, "Oh crap, they've won some games." They're just such a pesky team, right? And they kind of got going there 4 or 5 years ago to what they've become, and Dan Hawkins seems to have them rolling so far again.
Yeah, Kyler?
Yeah, I mean, they avoided both the Montana schools last year. And then looking at their record, they didn't beat one team that finished in the top 25, right? They kind of got beat by the good teams. They beat a few pretty good teams, but not great. And then they lost to an Idaho State, which was very weird. This is one of those programs where I think it's a little bit of a rarity. I think at this program, the coaching way exceeds the level of talent on the field, where it's kind of the opposite. Some of the other programs you'll see the talent is really solid. The coaching is a little hit and miss. This is one of those things where I think it's really hard to recruit to UC Davis, not because of their location, not because of their campus, not because of their school, it's because of their requirements, right? Very, very good school. So this is one of those programs where Dan Hawkins, he's proven he's been a hell of a coach at multiple levels. And I just think right now, and when they go against the elite, when they play in Eastern, you can just notice the difference of talent on the field compared to the coaching. And I don't think he can make up that gap as of right now until they maybe get to that next level, maybe get to a semifinals, and maybe can bring in some more talent. Because Dan Hawkins has done some amazing things. UC Davis used to be a bottom feeder in this conference, and they're a sleeping giant. They should never be a bottom feeder. But still, I don't think they're getting the level of talent like an Eastern's getting, a Montana can get, Montana State. So we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think the big thing when you look at UC Davis is they have been that program that has been down, and it does have to do something with the coach that they hired, right? But I was gonna say they were being scheduled because they were a bottom feeding FCS school, but now that upside of that scheduling back in the day, is they look like one of those programs that isn't afraid to challenge themselves. They've played NDSU in recent years out of conference. They played South Dakota State out of conference. So they're a team that isn't afraid to go and challenge themselves, which is what you want to see from a top-tier team, that they don't just float around. And especially at the Big Sky, where the conference schedule can be so wishy-washy in terms of, like, sometimes you play the other 6 best teams and other times you play all 6 teams that are below you. Like, it's nice to see them at least challenge themselves out of conference. And what we're talking about, they beat defending if this sounds familiar, the CUSA is just so up and down. Tulsa was a Conference USA winner, and UC Davis went down there and beat them in Tulsa last year to open up the season. Then they smoked their rival San Diego, and then they have a game against another FCS up and coming team in Dixie State.
Did you just call Tulsa a Conference USA team?
They're
in the American. My apologies.
They've been there for 10
even
years.
Better. Yeah, even better. Sorry.
I was like,
even better.
Anyway.
They were runners up or whatever, and they were in the conference championship game. I mean, obviously they had a terrible year after, but like, still, it's a FBS win. Like, UC Davis is that program that doesn't shy away from like playing people, I guess. So excited to see that, and it's a team that doesn't do terrible against the top half of the conference, and then they just have those games where they choke. They like struggled against Idaho. They lost to Idaho State. They didn't even play that well against Cal Poly last year. So it's just a weird team. But I think the 2021 takeaway is like 2021 UC Davis would beat 2011 UC Davis by 80. Like, this team has made huge strides in the last decade, and is a program that I think they're not going to do like the Sac State rocket up, but they are doing like a slow. Every year we take another step up the ladder. And in 3-4 more years, if they can consistently do this, they'll be able to get the recruits that they want. Like, they could be one of those top 2-3 teams consistently year in and year out in the Big Sky. So unfortunately for them, we're only going to be talking about 2022 this year. So let's talk 2022. And Dan Hawkins coming in this year, hot seat or throne? Boatman?
Throne. Give the king the throne. I mean, what else is – I mean, prove that UC Davis could do better since they've been up at the FCS. You can't. So you ride with the hot hand and until he either puts the program in the gutter or he leaves. You don't fire him.
Yeah. Kyler?
Yeah, I mean, they have UC Davis's only Big Sky title under Dan Hawkins in 2018. They shared it where they unfortunately lost to Eastern Washington twice in the same season. That was their deepest run where they went to the quarterfinals, or maybe it was just second round. Maybe the second round. No, yeah, Dan Hawkins, he's fine. Like I said, he is one of the rare exceptions in the Big Sky where I think his coaching well exceeds the actual talent that they have on the field. Without Dan Hawkins, I don't think this UC Davis team's winning 7 games a year. But with him in the pocket, yeah, they're doing extremely phenomenal. So I think he's going to be able to stay at UC Davis as long as he wants. And he may want to for a while.
And he's an alumnus too. So for him, this could be a retirement type gig, right? Like, he might want to be like Walsh was at Cal Poly and just kind of ride it out. Like, just be here until he feels like he really isn't doing them any favors anymore. Because if you're UC Davis, like, who else are you going to bring in, right? Like, this is that guy. If you're UC Davis, this is the dude. He's an alumni. He knows the area. He took you to heights I don't think many of them thought they would ever get to. Of like, maybe every blue moon they'd have a conference run. And yes, they've only have one conference championship under him. But like we mentioned, last year they were ranked in the top 25 every week. I wonder how many UC Davis fans in 2011 thought that they would have a guy who could have them ranked for 12 weeks of a college football season. Like, this is something that this fan base is still learning how to do with. It's a fan base that is starting to grow. The people that care, and it's slowly, they're adding more fans to the wagon. More people are going, okay, this wasn't a fluke. Okay, Dan Hawkins is staying. Okay, we're getting these guys. Now we have Big Sky All-Conference Players of the Year twice now, right? Like, it's a program that, like I said, it's slowly building into more of a powerhouse. They're not trying to turn it into a power overnight. They're slowly building, and that is 100% behind Hawkins. They weren't doing these things before Hawkins was there. And if they do have the FBS aspirations that they might have, he's the perfect guy to make that jump with them too. He's done the G5 coaching thing. He's done the P5 coaching thing. And he learned a lesson. Nepotism usually gets you fired 100% of the time almost. Other than that dumb mistake at Colorado, this guy has a coaching career that 80% of coaches in college football D1 would dream of, right? Like, he's that guy. Like, if you're UC Davis, he's a lifer. They're not firing him because who else are you going to get to do it? And nobody will be able to do it at the clip he's probably doing it, in my opinion. Transfers in just goes to show that this program is, in my opinion, building and building. They bring in Andre Crump from San Jose State. He's a young dude, played in 16 games. He has 9 receptions, 136 yards, and 1 touchdown. So not a ton, but he's going to be, I believe, a red shirt sophomore. So young dude coming in, realizing that UC Davis is somebody who got to see their campus this offseason. A lot nicer than San Jose State. And you're going to get a way better education. Probably a smart move. And, he was one of those guys who I think came on the San Jose State when they had their skyrocket year and won the Mountain West. And now he's like, that was probably a fluke. Let's go get behind something sturdy. And I think that's why you got Crump there. They've got a transfer wide receiver, also Logan Kraut from Arizona, a guy who probably saw what NAU was able to do against Arizona last year and was like, Big Sky's got some players. Maybe I should move there. No real stats, though. Linebacker Evan Tattersall from Cal, 20 games, 5 starts at Cal, a team that is bad. But their defense, surprisingly, hasn't been their issue the last couple of years. It's been more of their offense, which is shocking with who they have coaching them. But so a guy that has 5 Pac-12 starts. Like, yeah, it's probably the second or third worst team in the Pac-12. But, like, hey, you take that. It's coming in. It's a linebacker. They've got some replacing they got to do there. So getting Tattersall is a huge get. Then they have a guy who finally grew a heart and found a soul. You got defensive back Samaj Werner leaving Boise State as a redshirt freshman. So a guy leaving Power 5. Obviously, love Dan Hawkins picking over Boise State guys. That really redeems him a lot in my mind. Those are their transfers in. Transfers out, they do lose a big one. He's been – anyone that's followed the Big Sky recently, Jordan Perriman transfers to the University of Washington. I mean, the guy is a 4-year starter for UC Davis, 2-time All Big Sky, 1-time All FCS All-American by Phil Steele. But one of the upper 10 DBs around the Big Sky, which a conference that does have some pretty good dudes at the DB position. It's a big loss for them, but you can't hate the guy. I believe it was a grad transfer, so he's trying to go 1 year, play Pac-12 football, and maybe Boatman knows where he is on the depth chart, being a UW guy, but it's a bigger loss.
Not as plugged in as I used to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be. We talked about it. Idaho had a lot leave out in terms of like production. Perriman might be the best overall player so far that we've talked about to transfer out. We've got a couple coming that are pretty big transfers out. But I'd say as of now, Team 5 in our preview, best player to leave his program this year is probably Jordan Perriman. So what are your guys' takes on kind of the transfers in and the transfers out?
I some of the good. I like some of the transfers in. Right, you get some guys who, again, we talked back about playing experience coming from Cal. Played 16 games. Another guy, the receiver from San Jose State, playing 16 games. So anytime you can get some guys from a program and like you who have played some games at the FBS level, right, it never hurts you. I think Tattersall, the transfer from Cal, probably one of the bigger ones for them. Just because of being a 5-time starter, right, in the Pac-12. One thing that does hamstring UC Davis is their academic standards. Because they are a public school, they have to meet certain requirements. They are not like a private school who has exemptions. They can use waivers to get them in. They have to absolutely meet the public school requirements. That's why you see someone like Jordan Perriman go from UC Davis to a Washington, 2 of the top 10 public schools in the country. So that's the tough part. So tough losing Jordan Perryman, right? Like that's a big loss, massive loss. But if that's your only loss in a transfer, especially with the way the portal's been going and everything, not bad.
Yeah. And you bring in a DB in Samaj Werner to replace him, right? Like, is Werner going to be Perryman?
No.
I would wager money, probably not. Like, we don't know. He's young. He could be by the end of his career, but Perryman's probably the best DB that program's had in 20 years, if not ever. So, yeah, you're not going to replace a Perryman, but obviously Perryman goes out. They go in the portal to bring a guy in. Like, they understand what they lost and what they need to replace. So I think that's pretty huge on their part. And that's really my takeaway from this was I agreed with you. Was like Tattersall, I think, was probably their big get. They need some help at wide receiver, so maybe the Kraut guy does it. But I love that they signed Kraut and Crump, just kind of like food-related wide receivers, which is, I don't know why I find that funny. I mean, they're an agriculture school, right? So they do
exactly
food. So, I mean, next they're going to have like sour cream at running back or something. But, yeah, so I think that's kind of funny. But Perriman out is a big hit. So that's kind of my takeaways. Perriman's a big out, but as far as replacing defensive production, Tattersall could come in and replace that defensive production. Now, obviously not in interceptions and pass breakups and everything, but in, other aspects, clogging holes, tackles for loss, solo tackles. He'll have more of those stats being a linebacker, but he's probably going to be the Mike. So
yeah,
that's a big get when you can get a Pac-12 Mike linebacker. So,
well,
Tyler?
I don't have anything to add on like this current class that you guys didn't already mention. But one thing I will say is the class before, right? They had a transfer from UCLA linebacker Jay Smalley. He actually got significant playing time last year. I think he appeared in all 11 games. Look to see him make a big step forward this year. He's got some solid size, about 235-ish pounds. He seems to be kind of a field general. He can do a little bit of everything. So expect to see him take some big strides forward this year in the linebacking position. I would not be surprised if he's, one of their top 3 linebackers on the team this year.
Okay. Any impact players you guys want to talk about?
This is one of those where, like I said, I
should say there's the obvious one at running back. We have a headline for him, so we can avoid that.
Yeah,
we're gonna avoid it. This is, like I said, one of those where when I looked at the roster, this is specifically why I said I think the coach is way better than the individual talent on the field. I don't see a lot of big contributors. The one thing I will say is their whole defensive line is massive. If I'm not going to do an impact player, I'm going to do an impact defensive line positions group. They're all big Samoans, Hawaiians, the Polynesian descent coming down. They're all about 340, 330. They're just these big freak athletes.
Dude, Princeton Toki, the sophomore, he's basically Puna Ford. Like,
they're
5'11", 360, and he's a true sophomore.
And it's
like that guy is going to be like,
and it's not just fat. When you see him, he's just thick everywhere.
Yeah, he's a Vita Vea type. Like if you're trying to stop the powers in this league, like Montana State, that are going to hand the ball off to Fonse, that's a guy that can take the center and the guard out of the equation immediately. And then if you have linebackers like we touched on, like Smalley and Tattersall, you open those guys up to make plays. So, yeah, they're not the ones that are going to probably – I doubt Toki makes a ton of sacks or even tackles. But
he's not going to be the fastest guy.
Yeah, but I will take two offensive linemen out of the equation and let the linebackers be linebackers.
Which is interesting because their offensive line is extremely small. But their D line is probably the biggest in the conference. So it's just interesting to see. But overall, like, I don't know. I think this just shows you how good of a coach Dan Hawkins is, because I don't see tons of talent. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe UC Davis fans will come for my throat and yell at me and go, Kyler, you're just ignorant. You're naive. And maybe that's true. I just don't see the individual talent. But I think, Dan Hawkins does a thing to put this team in a position to win games. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wish I could watch a practice, just watch their D-line play their O-line.
Huge. Oh, I'm sure they dominate.
I got to peek at spring ball this year. They were out practicing, but I didn't know what I was looking at because we didn't know we were going to do this or whatever. But had I known and done a deep dive in the roster, some photos would have been taken. I probably would have been kicked out because they would have thought I was employed by Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Hey,
no, I agree.
Leave Rich Rod alone.
He's a winner. He's a winner. Yeah, and I forgot he's a West Virginia boy. So you guys probably love him out there in Morgantown.
Mixed feelings.
Yeah, I guess he did leave you for Michigan. So
yeah, when they anyway, don't want to talk about that.
Anywho, quarterback. I mean, is it Trent Tompkins? I believe is who was taking the snaps last year. Probably still going to be the guy. They're very young in that room. They've got Trent Tompkins, sophomore. They've got a junior transfer from San Francisco City College, so maybe a guy that's brought in to maybe provide some depth or some challenge. You got Mitchell Dixon, redshirt freshman. Grant Harper, who's a redshirt freshman. You have Miles Hastings, who's a true sophomore.
And he played last year. Significant time.
Hastings, yeah. And then you have Michael Ingracia, who's a true freshman. And then you got Gunnar Falk. So a guy
That's
who
Marshall's brother.
No. It's was it Kevin Falk? The guy for Wazoo, isn't it his brother?
I don't know. Marshall. That's all
I thought it was. I think it's the Washington State former quarterback's brother. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, so like kind of a question mark at quarterback, but not really. They brought in a guy that can two guys that can maybe challenge him, but yeah, we're probably gonna see Trent Tompkins. Yeah, those are my takeaways. Wide receiver or at impact players that we aren't going to talk about more. And then obviously they lose, what was it, Castles? Or they had a really good tight end that they lost. So that's kind of my takeaways on the team. Anybody else? Moving on.
Let's do it.
Headlines. Nope. Slide. There we go. Giddy up, Gilliam. Preseason Big Sky offensive player MVP. Do we agree with that, Bowman?
I guess, yeah. Like, you got trying to think about, dominant guys who are returning in the Big Sky across the board at the offensive skill positions. There's not like too many. And this guy's been one of the most consistent and best to do it in the Big Sky the last few years. So, yeah, I guess so. I'd rather go with him. I'll go. Yeah, I'll say yeah.
So if you were a voter, you would have picked Ulonzo Gilliam, or who would you have picked as your preseason MVP?
Probably him. Like, it's hard, right? Again, like, we were talking earlier about running back from Montana State. He can never stay healthy. He's hurt. He's not. So I'd probably go with Gilliam. Yeah. I don't know. Again, it's not like a sexy pick. It's not just like you can't go out and be like, oh yeah, it's definitely him. Right? That's the tough thing.
And to be fair, it's not just Big Sky Media. He's on the Walter Payton Award watch list. He is a stats preseason first team All-American, or it just says All-American. I don't think he was first team, but like other people are taking notice of him, right? So it's like he is, maybe because he's at UC Davis, a little bit more slept on than like obviously Marcus Knight and Isaiah Fonse at Montana State. But I mean, this is hard because Fonse is an animal, and I get the injury thing. At least Gilliam's been slightly more healthy. I guess I don't have a huge complaint with this, but I guess it goes to show maybe how open this conference is this year. We could have somebody kind of come out of nowhere, either Gunnar Talkington or Idaho's quarterback or running back, like heck, Cal Poly, like somebody could come out and win.
I mean, Tommy Malott. Tommy Malott could have won in it just because Montana State has enough games right now, and because if he's that good, just if they win the conference. Yeah,
because I would have been pissed if this was Tommy Malott. I was already mad that he won preseason first team All Big Sky quarterback because I was like,
yeah, but you could see him winning this at the end of the year, but you can't say preseason. 100%. It's him.
I would agree. Like we've seen
Afonse's the best offensive player already there.
Yeah, Afonse career 2,534 yards, 25 touchdowns. That's rushing. Receiving, he has another 6 touchdowns and 767 yards. So he's an all-around back. And you're talking about a guy who has 31 touchdowns in his career at the running back position. He's good. It's just, I don't know. It was a very underwhelming offensive MVP. If you watched any of the media day, like even they're interviewing Dan Hawkins, he's like, "Oh yeah, I actually heard that. That good for him." And he's like, Dan Hawkins didn't even expect him to win that award. Like,
are you ready for a
definitively?
Oh yes, Tyler, if you've got takes, please.
You ready for a controversial take that you guys probably won't even agree with?
Oh my God, you don't think Gilliam's good?
I think he's solid, but I think he's also the 5th best running back in the Big Sky. Now the only difference is, will he stay healthier than 3 of the other running backs above him?
Can we get your 5? Dotson, Knight, and Afonso.
Nope. I actually think it is Knight, Afonso. I think a healthy Josh Davis is better than Gilliam. And then I also think Daniels out of NAU. Right now, he's young. He was better than Gilliam last year. And I think he's only going to get improved. You know, he was a freshman last year from what I believe. So as of right now, I think Gilliam is the 5th best running back, potentially in the Big Sky. Now, the good news is he's healthier than all of the ones mentioned besides Daniels, right? Yeah. Afonso, he may not even play the first month. We don't know if he's playing the first half of the year, which means, guess what? For awards, accolades, Gilliam is probably a safer bet. But Knight has more touchdowns in a season than I'm pretty sure Gilliam has in his whole career, right? If Knight stays healthy.
I think it kind of goes also off of offensive scheme. Like, they feature him so much, right? It's like there might be other better guys, but because they feature him so much, like outside
Weaver has to split. That backfield's going to split carries.
Yeah, but even like last year, they feature him so much, but he didn't even finish as a top 3 running back in the Big Sky last year.
Did he? I'm looking. Did he play?
You had Merritt, you had Afonso, and then you had Daniels, who was above Gilliam last year.
UC Davis doesn't actually have his stats for 2021 on his website. So everything I read, you guys, was through 2020.
No, yeah, he had not a great year last year. It was like, and I could be wrong, but I think it's like hovering just around 700 yards. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it's 1,000. But I know like Afonso, Merritt, and Daniels had a better running back year than him last year. And then, you know, a healthy Josh Davis, I would assume, would have a, better year. Knight is a beast. You know, he's returning back. I just don't see it. I think he's getting this award as kind of when Case Cookus was a Walter Payton finalist above other players, and it was more of like a career. Good job. You had an amazing
lifetime
career.
achievement award.
Yeah, it was more of a lifetime achievement award than an actual, you were better than this person, this person, this person this season.
So Ulonzo Gilliam did finish 4th last year in rushing yards. No. What is this based off of? Oh, attempts. Why would you sort your stats by attempts?
I guess right. It's probably because you really can't like name. Again, this is kind of just like what happens when it's all off of vibes and names, right? Like since UC Davis has been a good program the last 5 years. They've won a lot of games. Who's been their best offensive player outside of Keelan Doss? Probably to go with Ulonzo Gilliam, and that's just kind of why I think you end up seeing, right? It's like an aggregate thing. You go, oh yeah, he's been there forever. He's been really good. They've won a lot of games. It's not, their quarterback plays whatever. It's not great. So Ulonzo Gilliam it is, and I think you're right, Kyle. I think it's more of like it's like an on aggregate, right? That we've arrived at this situation. It's like, hey, he's done a lot. They've won a lot of games. You can't really name a guy who has been this, has done this much for the program.
It's consistent.
On the teams above. Yeah, this consistent above on the 3 teams above them or 4 teams above them, right? So by default, it's like, well, I guess it's him. I think that's kind of why. That's why I was like so skittish on saying, yeah, I would have voted for him, but I also would have voted.
On the Big Sky stats,
the running backs were in the Big Sky.
Big Sky stats for running backs, so not including the quarterbacks. He finished tied for 6th in touchdowns, and he did finish 4th in rushing yards. So I mean, he is a top back, but like we mentioned, that is behind Afonso. Like in both categories, Afonso was 1 and 3.
And they announced Afonso was not at prior to them saying he's out month to month.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my issue. Like if it was announced after the month to month, he may not even play the
Yeah.
first month. I go, I get it. I get it why you would vote here. But
And this isn't postseason, right? Like this is preseason. We are saying going in, if Fonzie had the best shot to be the biggest player in the Big Sky. Now, if he's hurt and everything, then yeah, he's not going to win it at the end of the year. But going into the year, Fonzie is probably the best guy, and Gilliam isn't. So, but I mean, I don't hate it because of Gilliam. Like I agree with that Boatman. He's probably my 2 or 3. Like he's up there. He'd be my short list. He'd be a guy.
I don't think it's like a bad pick.
Yeah. Kyler, you're making hand gestures. What was that?
yeah, I think he's the 5th best running back in the league this year.
There's a 5. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Any follow-ups on Gilliam, or shall we move on to something that I think is pretty fun?
Let's move on.
Moving on. Arms race.
Mm-hmm.
The UC Davis is a program that's starting to flaunt a little bit of its money. They are building the Edwards Athletic Center, which is going to be their new weight room, indoor facility. I think they're going to share it with a couple of the other sports, but as you can see, they've got a practice field for those of you that are watching. They also have their stadium is actually like just directly behind it. So it's going to act as like the administrative offices and like the coaching offices, walk out weight room. So you can be literally inside, outside, workout, go right out to the practice field. It is stinking nice. And I guess the one downside of UC Davis is like we follow this conference pretty dang close. I did not know they were building this until I was on campus and saw the construction. And I'm like, what is that? Is that a new academic building? And then no, it's not. And it was kind of partially open. Like I don't think it's supposed to be done before the season, but like the structure was there. They had lights and everything in it. I think they were just doing like, more of checklist items. And this was back in April. So maybe it is done, but I couldn't find any pictures of it complete. So I think it's still probably being finished, but Boatman touched on this with the Eastern episode. We're talking about like the facilities that people are building. I mean, this is right up there with Montana State's. I actually think it might be better. I think it's better to have a practice facility open up onto your practice field than your actual field, because like you want them to be able to go practice, not have to worry about like, and eventually you want, if you're going to go FBS, which I think both those programs have some sort of hankering, they might do it here soon. You want to be able to have a closed bowl stadium at the FBS level, in my opinion. If you built your facility opening up to that, you can build above it. But I think you see that's kind of something that's falling out of style with modern stadiums. People don't want the whole athletic room that leads right out onto the game field. They want practice facility, game field, where you build a dome that has the best of both worlds, but might be biased on that.
I guess I'll get into this a little bit. Like I mentioned this earlier. Not that I consider this more my area of expertise, but I do walk through a $60 million football building at least once a week here in Morgantown. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what our setup is, Chris, in terms of where you want it to open up, right? Like ours opens up more onto our actual field, and they have to go across a parking lot to the practice field here at West Virginia. It's just the existing structure. Smaller stadiums are in, though. Montana State has plenty of room still to grow their stadium. You don't need to have a closed bowl necessarily, as long as you can do something on that end. It doesn't really matter. They'll figure it out. They need more suite spaces, and premium space in Montana State is what they really need. If you had to ask me. But this is great. I alluded to this in the Eastern episode. There are now 4 Big Sky programs with legit football facilities. The Montanas, Weber State, and UC Davis. Even Idaho has come out publicly and said, hey, we want to build our own new athletic performance center. And I thought that was a big step. That came out in a newspaper article here back in early summer. When they were talking about the Kibbe Dome upgrades. So, yeah, it's definitely the next step for a lot of programs. And it's huge for recruiting. I mean, I don't know. I would love to walk through these facilities and kind of compare and contrast these to the Power 5 facilities. But just from my experience walking through the one here, right, it has a cafeteria where guys can get 2 or 3 meals a day at West Virginia. Plus it has a full-on smoothie and protein shake bar and snack bar they can get anything else at. They have a barber that comes in once a week. They have a sleep room. Pretty much the whole point is so that you guys, the players, literally never have to leave the building except to either go home or to go to class. And that is it. And that's the only two times they want him to leave. So, yeah, they are important. They are big. They do help with recruiting because they're flashy. I mean, Oregon kicked this trend off. Clemson then followed it up. So, yeah, props to UC Davis for getting this done. Could be a game. I guess Kyler talked about, having maybe a less talented roster. Things like this could help change because,
small steps up the ladder, like I said. Like, we have a plan to expand our stadium. Okay, that's taken care of. We've got a new coach. Okay, that's taken care of. We're winning. Taken care of. Now we're building a new building. Taken care of. Like, they are taking it instead of, like, just throwing everything out there and trying to build everything in 5 years. They've had a methodical, like, one thing at a year. Like, 1 year we're doing
so you're
this.
telling me they're not Boise State trying to build $300 million at one time?
Exactly. They're taking the methodical approach, much like Boise State did with Hawkins, and to lead to the success it had in the late 2000s compared to where it's been in the 2010s. But yeah, the center, just to put in perspective, 50,000 square feet. It's adjacent to the field. It has 150 yards of natural grass that can be used by all 25 athletic programs. It cost $50 million, 90% of which was by private donation, including the most generous gift in UC Davis athletic history by Bruce and Diana Edwards, hence why it's the Edwards Center. They had multiple six-figure gifts, most of which were deciding to be quiet during the fundraising stage, so people that don't want credit. Like, that's the kind of money we're dealing with here at UC Davis now. Like, for instance, like Idaho, like I think when they say like privately, I think they mean by donors. Idaho just built a $40 million basketball arena, but 14 million of it or something like that was donated by a business, a bank. It's like, so that's, I think, the difference. This doesn't say any public funds were used. So I think 90% was strictly donors. I could be wrong on that, but that's impressive when you can.
I would assume that's
$45 million privately.
I mean, naming rights do count as a donate, kind of a quasi part of fundraising, right? So they sold the naming rights to the Edwards people for that large donation, right? So we sold our naming right to ICC Arena to a corporation as part of naming rights. So yeah, I won't get all into the fundraising stuff. I do that enough Monday through Friday.
Well, and also the main reason why it's probably not right on the stadium, they already have an upgraded stadium plan that's already, ready to go whenever they need it.
Probably built into that. I bet you when they expand, there's going to be some tunnel or something.
They probably can't, put it on that end zone because that's going to be covered with seats, right? So then why build it right there? The Big Sky in general is doing it really good with, these types of facilities. Even Northern Colorado just built a brand new, smaller athletic facility, but it's still extremely nice. Northern Arizona, same thing. They're doing some big things. So this is just common among the Big Sky. This doesn't overly do it for me. It's like, guess what? All of the Big Sky's doing this outside of a very few select teams like Portland State, Eastern Washington. But like Idaho State's renovating, Idaho's renovating, Montana State's renovating, Weber State just built theirs, Northern Arizona just built theirs, Northern Colorado just built theirs. So this is just going on along 90% of the Big Sky.
So then real quick, let's get out of here with this, out of the headline section into the conference preview. Where do you rank this, though? I mean, I know it's not done, so we could change once we see it and we get the flashy video with all the, crap. But, I'd say this is probably behind Montana State's. I mean, like I said, I like the practice facility thing, but Montana State's is really nice. Weber State's is maybe the best in the Big Sky.
And
Montana has their champion center, but I think it's probably better than Montana's just because Montana was kind of the first one to do it. So everybody took them as a blueprint and had to move above them. The downside of being the first one through the wall and setting the bar is everybody wants to do it better than you. But I'd probably put this as the 3 ahead of Montana, but behind Weber and Montana State. I mean, in terms of new facilities.
I was going to say new ones. Eastern has had theirs for a long time. We already have had an athletic center for a very long time, but it is what it is. But, yeah, I think this is top tier. Yeah. Top 2.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's move on into the old schedule and see how we think UC Davis is going to fare in the 2022 season. They open at, surprisingly, it's like a rival, but I don't think it's like an athletics rival. It's more of like an alumni rival. The UC system, I believe, is 7 or 8 schools. and these are the top two, not unquestioned. Nobody else is really close. Well, UCLA is close,
UCLA,
but
UCLA and Cal are the top two. This is
I think
a different
UC
type
Davis is two.
Well, this is kind of a different kind of one because it's the ag aspect, right? I mean, you get what I'm saying. They all serve their different purpose.
Yeah, but these guys are only an hour and a half apart, so they're like I was watching when I was down there, like just talking to people. They're like, yeah, the one thing is like people from the Bay Area, they just based on what they want to do. If they're from like wine country, they go to UC Davis and learn how to do grapes and farming and agriculture and dairies. There's that whole California cows are happy commercial or whatever. Then if you're trying to get into like tech or academia, then you go to Berkeley. So a lot of their alumni overlap, I'd say, more than like UCLA. So it's kind of that quasi civic pride, more of a rivalry. They open at UC Davis, and we can say at week 0 has happened. So split zone duo did pick UC Davis to beat Cal, or one guy drafted them in actually the first round to beat them. So the highest pick in that draft and the last of the Big Sky teams, or I guess first of the 3 Big Sky teams. Idaho State did not beat UNLV, so they're already batting 0 for 1. But Boatman, what do you think? Week 1 at Cal with a Cal transfer at linebacker.
I was doing a little bit of homework on Cal a little earlier, trying to figure some things out. ESPN, FPI has them going 6-6. Cal last year was actually not a bad team. Justin Wilcox has been there for a long time. Now he's going, I believe, year 5 or year 6 at Cal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go with Cal. I know UCLA was able to surprise Tulsa last year, but Cal, I think, will they'll know that, and also B, I think Cal is better than Tulsa, even though Tulsa was a little down last year. They were good the year before, but they weren't as good last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cal played a competitive game versus Sac State last year. They were still able to beat Sac State. UC Davis versus Sac State wasn't even really competitive, and that's the rivalry game. Cal should be improved. Yeah, I think Cal wins, but in terms of Big Sky versus P5 teams, they maybe have the best chance for an upset. But yeah, I'm still going to go with Cal's going to beat UC Davis.
Yeah, I'm going loss to Cal as well, though I'm very excited for this one. I've kind of been hopefully it doesn't bleed out into our predictions, but I've kind of become a UC Davis fanboy after going to their campus. It is beautiful. But and Pint the dog just won my soul. But I'm giving the loss. What are you guys' percentages that they can beat Cal? I'll go 35%. I agree, Kyler. I think this is our best shot.
8.
I'll go 15%.
15, 8, and 35. Then they're traveling to number 2, South Dakota State, Boatman.
Yeah, Jackrabbits. The Jason Eck-less Jackrabbits.
Less Jackrabbits. I agree. I think this one will be close, though. I think the Jackrabbits, are a little overconfident playing UC Davis. I think a lot of them maybe be overlooking them, going, well, they're kind of mediocre in the Big Sky. I think we've touched on it. It's a program that is kind of taking steps forward. I don't think they're at or a step ahead of South Dakota State yet, but I think this will be a close game. I could see this being within the touchdown, but I am going to take the Rabbits. Kyler?
Yeah, I think South Dakota State beats them by 30, just like they did last year at the very end of the season. I mean, it wasn't competitive at all. I don't see why it's going to be anything different.
Yeah. Then they host rival San Diego at home, Boatman.
Ooh, the Toreros coming in. You know who's the quarterback? Real Mitchell. Never watched the show QB1. He is now transferred to the Toreros.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, transferred from Temple. Never even – anyway. Yes, I'm going to go UC Davis. Aaron, win this one.
I'm going Davis as well. They haven't struggled with San Diego since Hawkins has really been in charge. Don't see that changing.
No, yeah. They're going to do what South Dakota State does to them. They're going to do to San Diego.
Just in time because conference play starts on up. Week 4, they are hosting number 20 Weber State, Alex.
I'll go Weber State. I remember UC Davis snagging one there, so I'll pay the favor. Weber State's going to win.
Okay, I'm actually going to take Davis here. Like I said, I think it'll be close. I mean, this is more of a toss-up game, but I'll take the Aggies.
Yeah, they played Weber State last year in a very close game when Davis was extremely healthy and Weber was butchered with tons of injuries, and they barely escaped. I think Weber, like I've said earlier in the last episode, I think they're better than they were last year. I'm going to pick Weber State to beat UC Davis.
Okay. Then they're at number 3, Montana State, Boatman.
Bobcats.
Man, you are rough on people early season. 1-4.
Hey man, I just look at it. I look at it game by game. I just arrive.
I agree.
You know,
I don't think they beat the Bobcats either. So I have them at 2-3. Kyle?
Yeah, if Fonze comes back in this week after he didn't play last week versus Eastern Washington, hoping. So yeah, Bobcats roll.
Bobcats roll.
Chris, you look at their schedule. They have to play 3 top 25 FCS teams and a Pac-12 team in their first 5 games. Like that's brutal. You look at the. I mean, we're going to get to the back half here. Things change around when they get to the back half of their schedule. So that's,
which is recency
the back half
bias
is super easy
into the playoffs. We'll see. But week 6, they're going to beat the bye as bad as people are going to beat the subscribe and like button on this episode. So wins there, wins all around. Hit those buttons for us, please, as we're trying to grow. Northern Arizona, week 7 after the bye, hosting them, Boatman.
Yeah, I believe I picked UC Davis in this couple days ago. So, right with the Aggies. Did I pick UC Davis?
I'll check. Wow.
Yeah, you should have that because we're going to get some as we get farther in here. We're getting more crossover.
No, you picked NAU to beat UC.
All right,
Davis.
I'm going to reverse that pick.
So
we're going to UC Davis.
Stay flat.
Yeah.
You are taking UC Davis.
Yeah. We're reversing that pick. I had some time to sleep on.
Sorry for those of you that tuned in the NAU preview. It's officially out of date. I'm taking the Aggies. Kyler.
Yep. Give me UC Davis beating NAU.
And I'm just trying to pull it up here to make sure. Kyler and I did pick it that way too. So we're at least on brand. At Northern Colorado the next week.
2 weeks in a row. We're going on a little Wayne streak here for the Aggies.
Agree. They'll beat Northern Colorado in Greeley.
Yep. Go Aggies.
Go Aggies. Win streaks. Feeling it. In the air. Cal Poly, they host them at home. Rivalry game. Bowen?
Time to make it 3 in a row. Aggies again. I love a good win streak, as you can tell.
I believe it's the Golden Horseshoe. I believe is what the rivalry is called.
Yes.
Golden Horseshoe.
Horseshoe stays in Davis. 3 games.
Here's the deal. I'm going to go a little weird. Bo Baldwin's finding a rhythm. The game was actually close last year. Hopefully Bo Baldwin's improved. Now, I had UC Davis beating Cal Poly in my Cal Poly prediction, but I'm switching it right now just because I want to. Do I believe it? No. But is it going to happen? Yes. Cal Poly gets the upset.
Is it good entertainment? Yes. I'm down for it. All right. Then they play the Idaho State Bengals at home. Senior night for them, week 10, Boatman.
Yeah, we're going to go the Aggies again. They make it 4 in a row.
Yeah. I'm taking the Aggies as well. I'm giving them the 4-game win streak too. Kyle?
Yeah, they won't lose to Idaho State twice in a row. So Aggies win this one, especially after a disappointing week 9 against Cal Poly.
All right. Win there. Then they travel to the Kibbles and Bits Dome, week 11 to face the Idaho Vandals, Boatman.
What did I pick? What did I pick last time?
You picked in the Idaho preview against UC Davis. You had Idaho losing to UC Davis.
Yep. All right. Yep. Feel great about that one. Aggies.
Okay. Cool. So you have them on a nice freaking 5-game heater. I agree. I just said Dan Hawkins has never struggled with Idaho, and I don't think they're going to struggle with Idaho this year. So
no, he did struggle in the 2020 game season.
Okay, has never lost to Idaho. I think he lost 1998 as the offensive coordinator under Houston Nutt or whatever to Idaho.
That was Dirk Cutter. Dirk Cutter.
Okay. He has 1 loss against Idaho, never as a head coach. I don't think that changes this time. So,
I picked Idaho in my Idaho preview, and I'm sticking with it. Times are changing.
There we go. Kyler's being pretty realistic and or harsh. He goes loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. keeping it pretty fitty. The big one, the old Causeway Classic. They're traveling, I think it's like 16 or 22 miles down the road
Super
to
close.
Sac State, Boatman.
Yeah, Stingers up, baby.
Playoffs on the line for you, and you're saying Stingers up?
Yep.
All right. I'm going Stingers down. They end the
Not
year on a
surprised.
6-game win streak. UC Davis gets the W. Tyler?
Sac State wins this one. Yep.
All right. We have a very wide array for these records. We all separate 2 wins apiece, the lowest of which is Kyler, having them at 4-7 with their only wins against San Diego, NAU, Northern Colorado, and Idaho State.
He is low.
Boatman is
He is selling UC Davis stock this year.
He is sell. Boatman has them at 6-5 with wins over San Diego, NAU, Northern Colorado, Cal Poly, Idaho State, and Idaho, with a playoff chances heartbreaking loss the last week of the season against Sac State. I have them at 8-3, and I'll tell you this: I'm more confident in this 8-3 than Eastern Washington's 8-3 from the episode.
How do you get to 8-3 for these guys and Eastern Washington? I just don't.
Me neither.
They don't play.
I don't understand how you. But like how you arrive at that. I just don't.
Well, I think they beat San Diego. I think they beat Weber at home. I think they beat NAU. They beat Northern Colorado. They beat Cal Poly. They beat Idaho State. They beat Idaho, and they beat Sac State. Are any of those games that outrageous to you? Weber?
Weber.
Sac.
They beat Weber last year.
When like Kyler said, Weber. That was a bad year for Weber.
Weber ain't been healthy in 3 years. What makes everyone think they're going to be healthy this year?
Sac State, defending conference champs, killed UC Davis.
I mean, I'll lie. I think my biggest reach here is the Sac State one for sure. Like, I think Sac State's the one that I could probably get wrong. But
Boatman has the most accurate one for a prediction for this one. I just, the only one I don't think out of my predictions is actually going to be, coming to reality is the Cal Poly one. I just wanted to pick Bo because I felt bad. Other than that,
Bald Bowen. I like that from now on.
Yeah, Bald Bowen. Other than that, I don't see how they're beating South Dakota State, Cal, Weber State, Montana State, especially if Afonse's playing, and Sac State for sure. Then I think Idaho's a 50-50 game.
I think I could see more than 3 losses. When I look at that schedule, I see more than 3 losses. I don't know where they're going to fall necessarily. Well, I have made predictions on where they're going to fall, but I just see at least 4 losses. Like,
same.
If I'm UC Davis, I'm happy with a 7-4 record. I would be ecstatic with 7-4. 8-3, I would jump down your throat and they got a shot at that point.
Playoffs because you're 7-2 against the FBS or FCS.
You pretty much the way you're picking them, you have them pretty much probably splitting a conference title. That you're saying they're going to go 7-1 in conference play.
Their only conference loss would be against Montana State. They avoid Montana. If Montana State loses to Montana,
that's probably putting you in contention for a split conference title. And do you think this team is good enough to split a conference title?
I think they're better than their 2018 selves.
I don't think so at all. I think 2018 with Jake Meyer would smash them.
Yeah,
Jake Meyer and Keelan Doss were dudes.
Yeah, they would. I don't even think the game would be close. Give me 2018 UC Davis by 21.
Well, we'll see. That's the beauty of these previews. I might eat crow on this one. That's fine. Crow's okay for dinner for me in November.
They're definitely going to do better than what I predicted. And they're definitely going to do worse than what you predicted. Boatman's is probably more realistic.
All right. Well, takeaways for UC Davis before we get out of here. What do you guys think the UC Davis fans should be looking forward to and taking away from their 2022 season?
I think their schedules. I think their schedule does set up a little nicer than Eastern's in the sense that this team could be a French playoff team, right? Like, if you were to tell me which team would finish 7-4 and potentially make the playoffs, I would probably pick UC Davis, just because that back half of that schedule, right? Like we had them rattling off wins nonstop,
super easy.
Yeah. And right, we do talk about they have the best chance to maybe beat a Power 5 team, right? For example, so. I would probably avoid Montana. They don't have to play Eastern, which if they did, imagine if they did swap out like Montana State for Eastern, that game would pretty much be decide who would go to a playoff berth, in my opinion. So I think 6 and 5 is where they do fall, but they could push for this team probably. If I had to give you if one of Eastern or UC Davis makes the playoffs, I'd probably go 55-45 UC Davis. So that's kind of my final takes is that this team could push into a playoff spot potentially.
Yeah, yep. I think they have a more favorable schedule, right, than Eastern Washington for sure. But yeah, if they played each other, I think Eastern Washington would have 11 wins, 0 losses, just adding to the 10-0. They've been competitive with us 2 games. It hasn't really done much. I think UC Davis is a solid program. I think they are the bar of if you finish above UC Davis, you're a really good team in the FCS. If you finish below, you're average or similar, you're pretty good, anywhere from maybe a top 25 to a top 40 team. And then if you finish below an NAU, now you're really bad in the FCS. So I think UC Davis is that line to where if you finish above them, you are a great FCS program. Around there, you're good. That's about it.
Yeah, so they're just like a better version of NAU, right? They're just a more put together NAU, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're much better coached NAU.
Yes, exactly. That's the difference.
So do we agree? We touched on this with the Eastern episode yesterday, but do we agree that UC Davis should be ranked high? Because Boatman, you kind of brought it up when you're critiquing mine of how do you have Eastern and UC Davis at 8 and 3? They are ranked 6th and 5th in the conference standings, so people view them as pretty similar. If this was a neutral site game, let's say they met in Portland, Oregon, does Eastern Washington beat UC Davis? And is UC Davis? Do we think UC Davis will finish higher than Eastern Washington in conference playoff or standings this year?
Again, I think Eastern's the better team, but I think UC Davis has a better shot to finish above them in the conference at the end of the year. And because those two things necessarily don't always correlate, especially in a league where you don't play every team. So
yeah, I think that is very fair.
UC Davis's worst year under Dan Hawkins is 5 and 6, and that was their first year with him.
Exactly. So I'm going 6 and 5. So that's better than their worst year.
Oh, that's not true. They actually went 5 and 7 in 2019. So I don't even know how that happens, but they did after losing first round of the quarter.
And then they went 3 and 2 in 2020 in the spring.
Where
that's not great.
Had they opted out of the playoffs, but they might have been the last one in. But I think it still would have gone to the Missouri Valley.
Yeah, they weren't getting in over that.
But yeah, well, anyways, it'll be interesting to watch the UC Davis Aggies play football this season. We will see you guys tomorrow with the Weber State Wildcats.